Hello and welcome to another TLDR EU video. With 27 member nations, the EU has always had a difficult balance of powers, with different countries wanting sometimes vastly different things. So with Germany now having taken over the presidency of the Council of the European Union, questions are invariably being raised about what it may mean for Europe, especially considering the defining point we're at, in the midst of a pandemic and a looming economic crisis. In this video, we'll take a look at what the next 6 months may hold for the German presidency, and whether German dominance in the EU is set to continue now the UK is gone. Before we start, a quick shout out to our enamel pin badges, featuring our countries with shoes designs. We have badges for a whole swathe of countries, including, relevantly for this video, Germany. Find the store and pick up your badges by clicking the link in the description. When it comes to German power in the EU, there's one thing that's worth discussing first: the fact that Germany is taking over the role of the presidency of the Council of the EU. But what is EU presidency? Well, it operates on a rotating system. Every 6 months, a different member state assumes the role, which is responsible for chairing meetings at every level of the Council, and acts as a representative of the Council during discussions and negotiations with the European Parliament and Commission. Countries work in groups of 3, known as trios, and they set a common agenda for the 18 months that they're in control, focusing on topics and so-called major issues to be addressed by the Council as a whole, with the current trio consisting of Germany, Portugal and Slovenia. So, with Germany taking the driving seat, what can we expect? Well, in a programme entitled Together for Europe's Recovery, has set out 6 key areas. 1. Europe's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, stressing that any response will be in the context of cooperation. Within the EU, we can only master it successfully together and face this global challenge with our partners around the world. 2. A stronger and more innovative Europe, committing to an innovative Europe that is focused on the pillars of expanding digital and technological sovereignty, enhancing competitiveness, and shaping a sustainable and stable financial architecture. 3. A fair Europe, tackling the social repercussions of the crisis, to preserve social cohesion, and to promote young people's long-term future prospects in Europe, all against the backdrop of environmental, digital and demographic change. 4. A sustainable Europe, overcoming the economic and social consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic sustainably and inclusively, as ambitious and active players in the area of climate diplomacy, sustainability and European values. 5. A Europe of security and common values, ensuring Europe remains a place where all people, regardless of their background, convictions or worldview, can feel free and safe, pressing for ambitious reforms in asylum and migration policy. And 6. An effective European Union for rules-based international order, anchored in partnership, having assumed a special responsibility for effective European external action, as only together can we Europeans effectively address international challenges, assert our interests through cooperation, and defend our values. The timing of the German presidency is significant. As the Associated Press put it, Germany's time at the helm is bookended by landmark moments for the bloc. At the beginning, the bloc will seek agreement on a huge package to pull its stricken economy out of the coronavirus crisis and on its future budget. At the end, former member Britain's definitive departure from the EU single market is expected, with or without an agreement. In between, the EU must grapple with how to handle an increasingly assertive China and prepare whatever happens in the US presidential election in November. And it's worth noting that although it's some months away, given the passing of the deadline to extend the transition period, and barring a legal workaround, the transition period for the UK will end on the 31st of December, the last day of the German presidency. As the EU's largest and arguably most powerful member, Germany has always had a prevailing influence on all things European, From the development of the European Union as an institution, to mitigating the fallout of the 2008 financial crisis and European sovereign debt crisis, to the present day. It's commonly said and proclaimed by the German Chancellor herself that when France and Germany agree, the EU doesn't always agree, but when France and Germany don't agree, there cannot be an agreement. Given this, all eyes are on Germany to move Europe forward, and Merkel is aware of these high expectations, stating that she wants to live up to these expectations by striving for all of us to come out of this crisis unharmed, and for Europe to be prepared for the future. Only together we can succeed by living our European values and defending them against others: democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Merkel's experience, however, at handling major crises is second to none in the European Union, being one of the only leaders still in power, having led their country through the financial crisis of 2008-2009. In an interview with 6 European newspapers, including the likes of Le Monde and The Guardian, Angela Merkel highlights the parallels between the current German presidency, set to be her last in the position of Chancellor, and her first back in 2007. My first presidency as Chancellor was in 2007. The European Constitutional Treaty had just been rejected in France and the Netherlands, and we had set ourselves the task of shaping a new treaty. We succeeded in that. Then came the international financial crisis, turbulence for the euro, and the refugee issue. So difficult things are nothing new. Now, the coronavirus pandemic is confronting us with a challenge of unprecedented dimensions. It's torn us away from a period of positive economic development in all EU member states, and has coincided with the 2 most disruptive phenomena of our time: climate change and the digital revolution. The tone of this piece cannot be understated. In the eyes of many, Germany, or at least Merkel, has markedly changed her attitude to Europe, with many pointing out the recent Solidarity First Recovery Fund proposal as a change from the rules-based, although liberal approach of the financial crisis, something which we covered in a recent video. Darren McCaffrey, political editor at Euronews, highlights this. Germany has gained so much from its membership, particularly in the 20 years since the introduction of the euro. Yes, it might be the union's largest net contributor, but its economy has made great gains without massive appreciation in the euro. In Berlin, the mood has shifted to preserving the model, even if it means compromising on previous red lines to protect its own self-interest. People and news organisations from across the political spectrum have focused on Germany's need to step up, from the FT saying that the task that Germany faces is gargantuan in its size and complexity, to Politico stating that Europe's reluctant hegemon is reluctant no more, from Professor James D. Bidenagel going as far to say that if Germany doesn't show leadership in Europe, there won't be a Europe. That being said, the German presidency isn't going to solve all of the EU's problems, where a magic wand is waved and everything is fixed in a 6-month period. The next 6 months are going to be tough on all parties, with again the Associated Press highlighting, while Germany may have the clout to help nudge negotiations for a deal on future relations with Britain along, those talks are firmly in the domain of the European Commission, and Berlin doesn't plan to get involved in shaping the details. The ability to nudge the process along makes the next 6 months under the German presidency a must-watch. Merkel has the opportunity and key moment to define the future of the EU. Merkel will ultimately have the political cover of the pandemic and is working alongside former confidant Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, the longest-serving member of Merkel's cabinet. All in all, allowing Merkel to put her foot down that bit harder. Christine Lagarde, former head of the IMF and currently the head of the European Central Bank, told the European Parliament that if the fallout of the coronavirus widened the divide between North and South, it would imperil the very existence of the European Union. So, safe to say, Germany's response is going to be very important. So, what do you think? Is the German presidency a chance for Europe to come together and come out of the crisis stronger? Or is it doomed to fail? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, you can continue the conversation over on Discord. Also, be sure to subscribe for more updates and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we post. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible.